While climate change is proceeding at a frightening pace, thankfully, both here in the US and internationally, protest movements to get governments to do something about it are also heating up. And joining us now to break down one of the major parts of that international effort is Jamie Kelsey-Fry of Extinction Rebellion. Jamie, welcome to the Damage Report.
Hi, fantastic to be on your show. Thanks for getting us on.
I'm very glad that you came on. We've obviously been watching here from America what your group has been up to. For those who might not have seen the London protests, tell us about how those got started and what the objective was.
Wow, okay. If you didn't see it, I recommend you look at the films about it because it's something quite extraordinary. If any of you have ever been to London, we took 5 of the main sites. We occupied 5 main sites for 10 days. So the famous shopping centre, Oxford Street, in Oxford Circus, we had a large pink boat that we kept there. People were camping all around it, all the roads were blocked. That was there for 10 days, where we were holding assemblies, teach outs, and raising awareness about the absolute emergency of climate breakdown. That's just Oxford Circus. We also did something similar in Marble Arch, where there was a huge camp and we shut down Marble Arch, occupied it for 10 days. Piccadilly Circus in the centre of London, also occupied. That was mainly the Extinction Rebellion youth. And Waterloo Bridge, one of the famous London bridges, we turned into a garden for 10 days where people lived and camped on that bridge. And Parliament Square, famously, we also occupied Parliament Square and shut that down. This was for 10 days. It's quite unprecedented to have such an extended amount of direct action and occupations. Over that period of time, we had nearly 1,100 arrests. The famous Gold Command police officer in charge, Cressida Dick, she was saying that in her 35 years of police experience, she's never seen anything like it at all. So it was an amazing action that happened, and it's struck a chord with the general public. This is no longer something to do with lefties or small groups of the population who are concerned about the climate change. It's everybody, and very tightly tied into this is Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old from Sweden, who came over on October the 31st to declare the Extinction Rebellion with us, and she came back and returned to the camps during the occupations. So it's very tied in with the brilliant youth-led movement around the world, and your Sunrise movement in the States also is very much tied in with what's happening.
And those are basically the 3 crutches keeping me going day by day that you just mentioned right there. And so thank you for that, because I'm scared out of my mind. So one of the goals, obviously, of the movement was to get access to representatives of the government and to try to push them in the right direction. So tell me about that.
Look, this is quite extraordinary. Sorry, John. Yeah, this is quite extraordinary. That the fact is, in 10 days, we were able to force meetings. Well, should I say? We won meetings with the leading minister in the incumbent government, in the Conservative government, Michael Gove. We had a private meeting with him and some of his ministers about the environment, but we also had a meeting with the leader of the opposition, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. Jeremy Corbyn came in for some of that meeting, and also another meeting with the mayor of London. Just in 10 days, things like that don't usually happen with your normal activist group. But this is not a normal activist group. This is actually, in my opinion, it's not necessarily something you may call particularly political, not in the usual sense of the word. This is about humanity, and as you're talking about, one of the things that's keeping you from, keeping you sane is these crutches of these movements. It's real. It's an absolute emergency. If we don't treat it in the same way that we're treating a major war threat from another country, then we're looking at the most disastrous period in human history.
Jamie, it's the old guy talking to you now. If part of the problem that people have with movements who are in your seat right now is sustaining them, is making them endure. What's the plan for that? Because this is not a sprint, as they say. This is quite clearly a marathon.
Yeah, well said. We declared rebellion on October the 31st, and then we said we'll be back and we'll close 5 bridges on November the 17th, which we did successfully, and that's hadn't happened for a very long time. And then you rest after some time like that, you recoup and you learn. It's a very iterative movement. We are operating in ways that I haven't seen any activist groups operate before, and we are learning every time from what happens, and we are being contacted by groups around the world all the time. We're in 43 countries. So I guess the answer to that question is there's a rest for sure, because it's exhausting to do that. But then also 30,000 people just in the UK alone signed on over those 10 days. So it's also a time of bringing more people on board and working out where their skills will be placed. We're also spreading out to district groups around the country. And also, as I've mentioned already, we're in 43 countries around the world as well. So it's now a period of recuperating, regenerating. We've got what we call a regenerative culture. What that recognizes, and I think this is one of the things that's very salient about this movement, we recognize the fact that this is exhausting. We recognize the fact that people get what we call burnout. And so we have at the center of what we do a regenerative culture. That means that we will rest and look after each other and continually pay attention to everybody being well enough psychologically, physically, in every way, so that they can continue with this. Because as you say, this is a long, long game.
That is fascinating, and after this show, I'm gonna have to think about how to apply that to my own life and how TYT functions, actually, because that sounds useful. We don't have time, unfortunately, much more time. Hopefully we can talk more going forward. But for people around the world who might be watching this that want to get involved with Extinction Rebellion, what can they do?
Look, just go to rebellion.earth. That's it. It's a really good website. And like I say, there's groups growing every day around the world and in the global south. Before we go, there's one thing that you said, you're dead right. Politicians cannot deal with issues like this. So you need to look at the way that we're using sortition and citizens' assemblies. Our only chance is for the people to unite and decide on how we make these changes. The existing system, as your great show continually shows, neoliberalism is a disaster. It's a disaster form of capitalism. And the only way out of this is for us to actually go around the system. And that will be done by us, human beings, together making this great change happen.
Thank you, Jamie, so much for coming on the show. It is great to hear someone talk about both this breakdown and also about addressing it with the passion and intensity that it requires. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.